Did someone say Mills and Boon? Well, Fawad Khan is all that and more. He has a quiet charm and a sexy broodiness that sends the ladies into a mad frenzy. How has this actor from across the border made his way into the heart of Bollywood? We'll find out soon enough. Welcome, Fawad, to the show.
Thank you.
And right now I have to say that there are at least about 25 women especially who have told me that after the shooting I have to take autographs from you to give it to them. So how do you react to this kind of euphoria for you?
Thank you. I've said this before many times, but I never really thought of myself to be a very attractive man. Somewhat, I might be more vain than the average person probably, but not there. I guess that kind of keeps me on a check and balance in a lot of ways, and I think that would benefit me in the long run. So I'm surprised. I'm always surprised. Obviously, it's something for anyone, I think, and I'm sure even for the superstars out there, for the megastars out there, it's the same thing. You know, when they come across more and more fans in other parts of the world, it's always a new experience for them, and for me, it's the same as well.
But what is it about you? I mean, have you ever tried to assess it, analyze it?
If I were to sit down and assess and analyze myself, I think I'd actually start deconstructing the idea of why people like me, and I'd actually start thinking of ways how they'd hate me. So I think it's best that I keep away from that.
As a kid, as a child, or as an adolescent, was it always like this? Did you always
No, I was picked on. I was bullied in school.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell us a little more about that. Why were you bullied?
Well, it's interesting, and now I look at it in a very funny way, because I think in the 90s I used to study in an American school. The idea of, you know, brown and white people, it just didn't mix too well, I think. You know, white bread and brown bread just didn't go together. I was kind of bullied that way as well as being kind of the person who was just the quiet one in the class. So a couple of these things kind of just had me a bit shaken for a while.
Were you a good student? Since you said you were quiet, normally quiet students always good students.
Not at all, actually. Not at all,
No?
not at all. I actually don't know what I was doing in school. Now that I look back, I swear to God, I think I pretty much daydreamed and slept my way through classes.
So what were you dreaming about then?
I was a very big cartoon fan. I still am a very big cartoon fan. I love watching cartoons in my spare time with my son. I, in fact, once caught myself actually writing something. I don't remember what it was, but it was from a cartoon. It was a line from a cartoon, and I was writing that down on a test paper as one of the answers to the questions. To which then I got demoted to another section. They were like, he needs special attention. So that's how distracted I was in school.
But were you also a slightly weaker kid in the sense that not really big built and...
I was quite the athletic person as I was participating in a lot of sports. And this is before I sort of, landed with diabetes, which kind of slowed down my interest in sports and, physical activities. But before that, I was almost just on every team. So that was not the thing. It's just that I have always been a bit of a quiet person, I think. I don't like confrontation. I really avoid confrontation. I hate it. I hate arguments.
And you then eventually went on to study mechanical engineering, is what I hear.
Wow. No, I didn't study mechanical engineering. I studied software engineering.
Okay.
But in this age, I think, Wikipedia can be very misleading.
Misleading, yes.
So I did my software engineering. I went to, and it's quite a sad story actually. I did not want to go to that university. I did not want to get into that curriculum. So the story behind that is because I was such a big fan of cartoons, I wanted to get into animation. So I go up to my father one day and I say, I want to get into, and I have to explain this to a man who's obviously, from that school of thought के बेटे ने बड़ा होकर डॉक्टर बनना है, इंजीनियर बनना है, या बिजनेसमैन बनना है, या ये बनना है, या वो बनना है, और सॉफ्टवेयर अब एक नई चीज़ आई है तो मार्केट गर्म है, सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर बनेगा, बड़ा पैसा कमाएगा. So I'm saying कि I want to do something in animation and in graphics. He's like, सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर बनना चाहते हैं. I was like, नहीं, it's not exactly that. He's like, हाँ, तो मैं अपने दोस्त से बात करता हूँ ना, वो तुम्हें जो है सब कुछ करा देता है. And then eventually I end up giving these tests and examinations, and he comes up to me one day with this prospectus of his university, and I just look at it and I look at his face and I'm like, what's this for? He's like, तुमने तो कहा था तुमने graphics करने. तो मैंने कहा तो ये computer college. I was like, no, that's different and that's different. And obviously my father was गुस्से के तरह गर्म होते थे. So he lost his temper immediately, and I was like, okay. I'll go to a computer college. So I eventually obviously gave in to his wishes and spent academically a miserable 4 years. But otherwise, I think it was quite an education because I came across some wonderful people. And it's because of that I got into acting and I got into music.
How did that happen? How was that
I was
transition?
bunking classes and I was actually going and acting in a sitcom.
Oh.
So I was actually doing that between classes. And then we started an underground band and we used to like jam at I came across a couple of other fellows in college who had similar interests. They were into metal and rock music. And we were rebels without a cause. And we just wanted to bang our heads, play drums and guitars and all that. So my grades started slipping from semester 1. And by the time I was graduating, I was a C grade student. But I have no regrets in that.
So you did a sitcom simultaneously as your music band and your thing was going on?
And college, yeah.
And was that sitcom popular?
No, it wasn't. And I will not tell you about it. And we'll not get into this conversation.
No, because I'm a little surprised because from what I gathered was that your first film was Khuda Ke Liye. I thought that was the film.
No, I'd been working on television earlier than that. But I was just like dabbling in and out of it. Actually doing a 9 to 5 before I started Khuda Ke Liye. Oh. So, and that's when I got out of university. The interesting story behind that is because I had to get married and I had to convince my wife's parents. तो लड़का क्या करता है? अब वो ये तो नहीं टीवी चला के कह सकती थी कि ये सिटकॉम में काम करता है. That was actually very embarrassing, and that sitcom was very embarrassing. She actually came up to me one day and she's like, "What will I tell my father? What do you do? And you make funny faces on TV." So yeah, that kind of was the need of the time, the need of the hour. So I got into that. I did a 9 to 5, and then it was just working out. And then I just suddenly this casting call came out for this movie. I was like, this is one movie that is considered to be the revival of cinema in Pakistan. So I was like, okay, if it works out, why not? And it was just purely out of just curiosity. I was like, yaar, music kar liya, thoda TV kar liya, film karke dekh lete hain.
During that time, were you just doing it for a lark, like you said, कि अच्छा TV कर लिया, गाना गा लिया,
चस्के ले रहा था, हाँ, चस्के ले रहा था.
But when did that shift into becoming a profession? When did you decide that अच्छा ये कर लिया, ये मुझे बहुत पसंद है, अब मैं जिंदगी भर यही करूँगा?
I'm going to tell you a story about when I was crossing Atari this time, coming by that, and the immigration officer, he asked me, he's like, तो आप क्या पढ़ते हो फिर? क्या मतलब स्कूल गए हो कोई इसके लिए आपने कोई एक्टिंग कोर्स किया है कुछ इस तरह की चीज़ की है? मैंने कहा नहीं. तो फिर किस तरह आप इसमें घुस गए? So I just kind of, and very honestly, these are the words that came to my mouth automatically, and it was very instinctive. And I mean in no way any offense to anyone in this profession because I'm a part of it. I have a lot of respect and regard for it. But मुझे नौकरी नहीं मिल रही थी, and I had no other way of making money. So I became an actor.
I'm just wondering, how do you do that? Like, how does that happen? Such great performances, and how does that come up?
It's not like I don't put my heart into it. It's not that I'm just walking on set. I'm just like, give me my check and I'm walking out. If I'm doing something, I might as well do it right. True. And if I know how to do it, you see, the thing is, very honestly, I tried my luck at 9 to 5s. And it just did not work. I did not have that work discipline in my life.
What job were you doing, by the way?
I did a number of jobs. And I ended up at one point penniless. I had no money in my account whatsoever. And this is one night when I just sat down and I started thinking, listen, my career is actually going nowhere. Professionally, I'm not moving forward. So what do I do? And that's when I actually sat down and I had this conversation with my wife. And for the first time, I was very honest with my father. And I was like, it's not working out. It's not going to work out for me. I don't see any other way forward. So he's like, then do what you think is right. And I was like, okay, fine.
So Fawad, Khuda Ke Liye won a lot of acclaim, critical acclaim, and it was also talked about all across the globe. Surprisingly, you didn't do a movie after that.
After Khuda Ke Liye, I think an odd 1 or 2 films came out in the following years as a follow-up to that, but nothing significant happened. So yeah, I was in a bit of a fix again. I've had too many fixes in life. So I was in a bit of a fix again and I was like, what do I do next? Television was probably the only medium left where you could actually explore, the art of acting. I was like, until a film comes along, I think मैं अपने acting पे हाथ साफ कर लूँगा.
But Zindagi Gulzar Hai was the first show you did, or was it a subsequent show?
Zindagi Gulzar Hai, I think, happened in 2010, I think. I did a couple of other shows after that as well.
So was that the first show you did?
No, it was not my first show.
Okay.
My first show, those are the names I'm not going to take. I'm not going to tell you the stuff that I think I'm known better for. You know, my work in television over the years has also been very limited. In a period of 15 years, I think I've done 8 projects, I think.
Oh, that's it?
That's it.
You mentioned that you had got a couple of offers even after Khuda Ke Liye from India. And then Zindagi Gulzar Hai came here and people sort of woke up to you, and even Khoobsurat happened. What was the difference between the offers that made you choose Khoobsurat and not choose the earlier one?
I was supposed to come down to meet producers at that time. But then Mumbai shootings happened. Okay. And that's why things went into the freezer then. And then I came across this film when I was going to audition for. And that went on for a whole year. I felt, I wasn't led on, but I was led on. That I'd be a part of it in some way or the other. So it was for this film called The Reluctant Fundamentalist.
Okay.
It was under consideration for a whole year. And towards the end of the year, and I suddenly realized that it was not working out and it was not going to happen. That's when I was like, I was heartbroken. I was like, oh God, I've like waited a whole year, and I parked my career aside, and I was like, I was gonna do a film, and I was just gonna do it right. And that's when I got into to TV with a vengeance. So it was a bit of on a rebound.
How did Khoobsurat chase you?
Khoobsurat didn't really chase me. So I'm sleeping, and I suddenly get this phone call from the casting director of the film, and I just pick up the phone, and she's like, I'm casting for this film, and this is the film. I'll send you the scenes and, watch the old, and we're making a remake, and this is the take on what the remake is going to be like, and, and if you feel after that, you can record us a couple of scenes and send them over. I did the scenes, I recorded them, and I sent them over, and they're like, okay, now fly down. I came down, and I met them, and that kind of meeting was just a bit of a formality, I think, because 15 minutes into that meeting, it was a bit of a reading as well. We were sitting in the next room, and we were discussing how to actually, how do we go ahead with it? What's the next step?
And what was the experience of Khoobsurat like? Like, how did you find, was it different from working in Pakistan on a film versus working in Mumbai on a film?
There's an enormous difference. Obviously, when we shot Khuda Ke Liye, that was back in 2008. And we were shooting on like noisy cameras then, noisy film cameras. So, I didn't even have an idea of यहाँ पे किस तरह shoot होता है उसे. मतलब, that was the first film for me. But जब यहाँ पे आया, obviously I feel कि यहाँ पर जहाँ पे 100 साल से एक continuous tradition रहा है. या तो ये होता है कि पाकिस्तान में भी, it had been happening continuously for years and years and years. I feel अगर तसलसल होता और there was constantly people are making films over a period of whatever number of years that has been, so then the technical expertise, would be at par. So मेरा experience जो यहाँ पे रहा है, that was extremely amazing and professional, and I felt very welcome. I was being treated really well, I had great co-actors to work with, and the team was, there was no pressure about it. There was no lights, camera, action, now get to business. It was more like, let's sit down, let's have a conversation, and then, let's shoot the film.
Culturally, did you find anything different? Because I think one of the biggest differences is Zaban, as they say. Because Siddharth Malhotra keeps saying that he's quite amused, or not amused, but a little taken aback by the words you use.
Achha.
Like he mentioned कि मैं पीठ टिका के आता हूँ to take a
कमर
टिका के आता हूँ to take a nap. People here look at you like, oh, he speaks such quaint and exotic way. Did you find that a shock when you came here कि ज़बान का इतना फर्क?
ज़बान का फर्क है. And this I was talking to Karan the other day as well. I was like, like for example, back at home, you call a buddy jigar, कि वो उसकी और मेरी तो जिगराहट है, These kind of terms and all that. He's like, no, I'm not aware of that stuff. And I was like, well, I mean, that's the kind of difference, So, like for example, कोई दिक्कत नहीं. So that for me is now I'm beginning to understand कि okay, दिक्कत is used instead of masla. Otherwise, it's like कोई मसला नहीं है यार, हो जाएगा. This kind of stuff, I think ये जो कि कमर टिका के आता हूँ, that's an influence of a friend that I have in Karachi, and he's the kind of person who speaks very Salis Urdu. Salis Urdu is like very, like
Khalis.
वो जिसको कहते हैं ना कि पंजाबी में कहते हैं, I don't know if it's appropriate, जैसे ले लेना, ठीक है ना, taking करना किसी की तो है. So he does it in that kind of a way as well. So that I've always found to be very amusing, and that is kind of a habit that I caught on from there. But that's not always there. ये कभी कभार हो जाता है इस तरह की जो है ना बात जो है मैं कर जाता हूँ.
But are there any phrases that you have encountered here, which is typically Bombaya, which has really amused you or which has stayed with you?
Y'all. What are you all doing? There's a bit of a habit that I've picked up. Now when I go back home, sometimes मेरे मुंह से गलती से निकल जाता है. That while talking, बीच में एक जो है खामा जो आ रहा होता है. So the first couple of times, when I saw people talking, I was like, they don't have patience to have a conversation with me. Like, for example, अगर किसी ने कोई बात कही है मुझसे, तो मैंने आगे से सवाल पूछा है कि तो लेकिन ऐसा क्यों होता है? तो I was like, क्या हो गया यार? अभी पहली दफा मैंने सवाल पूछा है, मतलब why are you getting so impatient? So I realized that that's actually a way of talking. It's like, I guess that's the fast-paced life of Bombay. You get frustrated really quickly. You just want to get things quickly done, and that becomes a part of your habit, I guess, a way of talking. So that kind of became my way of talking. A couple of times when I'm at home, I'd have a conversation with my wife. So it's a very dangerous kind of an encounter because she'd, ask me something and I'd be like, the kind of glares that I got after that was something that worth mentioning, yeah. So yeah, there are a lot of things यहाँ पे जो मैं pick कर रहा हूँ. Siddharth also told me about this word laziness, kantal. Like kantal का किसी ने मुझे आलस भी बताया.
Yeah, आलस.
And I'm like, आलस? But how is that? That does not even sound lazy. So for me, these things are new, but it's interesting. And I think that's the fun of actually working in different parts of the world. You come across these new words. Like in Sindhi, I remember there was this one actor that I was working with in Karachi. She's a fine co-actor. Her name's Sanam. And she knows Sindhi. So I asked her, what do you say? Teach me a curse in Sindhi. She's like, thok kathai. I was like, what does that mean? She's like, lana do. So these kind of small things, it's just kind of fun to pick up. Obviously, there are a lot of this profane language out there that I cannot use. But that's the interesting part, I think. That's the learning. And that's the real challenge to overcome of actually working here, picking up the lingo.
I just heard recently, I don't know how far it's true, that you are extremely shy of doing intimate scenes in movies.
No, वो चीज़ with that I think is more of a choice that I've consciously made because of the audience that is in my my larger audience, the audience that I feel that has put me where I am today. I don't think is used to that kind of visual cinema or TV. And I would not want to offend their sensibility. That is why I refrain from intimate scenes, not to make my audience uncomfortable. And I choose that because I'm working for them.
Was this the reason that you did not do Battle of Bittora?
That could be one of the reasons that we felt was probably essential for the script. But I think it's more to do with the fact that our timelines did not match. Because this, I felt a lot of the times, is not the main issue that came up in our conversations. It was more about the timelines. So that I think has less to do with intimacy and has more to do with the convenience of both the parties, whether the timelines would match. But yes, if Rhea had an issue with that, and she feels that is an issue, then she's completely entitled to to moving on and to having an actor come on board who's more comfortable with that. And there's no harm in that, I think.
Was it difficult to say no to Sonam and Rhea?
I have a great deal of love and respect for the whole family, especially when it comes to women. I'm terrible at negotiating. I'm terribly frightened of women that way. I get easily bullied into things. So yeah, it does get kind of difficult to say no, especially to a woman. And I don't mean that in the
I was just about to say
it can be taken a very inappropriate,
right.
But I meant more when it comes to business. Oh no, it's just getting worse and worse. But yeah, I have a tough time sort of. Can we move on?
Okay.
Because whatever I say is just going to sound weirder and weirder.
Okay, let's move on to more pleasant topic. How old were you when you got married?
When I got married, I was 24, I think. Yeah,
okay.
24.
So how did you meet her? How did you choose to get married at such an early age?
I met her at the age of 17. She's the first woman in my life, and hopefully for my sake as well, the last. Obviously, I have to say certain things. Please, no. I love my wife, and I think I'm the happiest man in the world. I'm enjoying it. I have a great life, and it started with her, and hopefully it'll end with her as well. So, I was 17 years old, and I fell madly head over heels for her. That's my first love. So, I proposed to her within the first 10 days, which makes me sound like a bit of a stalker and a psycho. And that's what she thought for the first 2-3 years. It was a bit difficult for me to finally convince her that I'm actually serious and I mean it. So yeah, that's kind of the history behind it. It happened at, funnily enough, at a tuition center. Sounds like a Hindi movie out of the 80s.
Yeah, exactly. So during this time, how did she react to your dreams of becoming an actor, or wanting to be an actor?
She was very supportive. Shraddha also came into my life at a time when I think I was a bit troubled, I would say. Troubled in the sense that very rebellious, I had the temper that could just probably blow the roof out of the house.
Really?
Yeah. When it comes eventually to the acting part of it and all that, she was more or less, like I said, when I was getting married, she said, okay, you have to, for a while maybe, just for deceiving my father, take on a 9-to-5, and then afterwards, when we're married, then you can just quit. Those were literally her words. And I was like, okay, fine. So I went on with it, went on with the program. Then I was like, finally, it's time to quit. And she's like, okay, fine, it's time to quit. And you do what you want to do. And I did it. And for the longest time, she was supporting me in the sense not just emotionally, but I think in a lot of ways financially. For the first year when I was not working out, I think we played it out as partners and friends over these years. And I guess that's why our bond is even stronger than ever.
And how does she react to all this female attention that you get, or this euphoria that surrounds you? Was there any point in time where she felt slightly insecure about the fact that you were becoming an actor, you'd be exposed to so much?
I think that can take a toll on anyone's nerves at some point in time, when there's constant invasion, and there's constantly people coming in and saying such things. But like I said, she's a very strong woman, a very mature woman that way. Her head screwed on really tight, as in she does not lose balance or focus of things. Yeah, it was in a conversation that was happening amongst friends. She had discussed this with a very good friend, her best friend. Her friend said, if you had let's say, a 1 carat, 2 carat, 5 carat diamond or something like that, would you rather keep it in the drawer or would you just wear it and show it off? So that kind of just she's like, that's the motto to her life. She's like, fine, if I have what others want, then that's something for me to be proud of. And I feel the same way about her,
So Fawad, we spoke quite a bit on the show about the multitude of fans that you have in the country. So on this show, we've decided that we'll give them an opportunity to own something that you have owned before.
Wow.
So I mentioned that to you. So what have you got for us today?
Well, I went to the wardrobe and I think that this is something of utility. These shoes were gifted to me, and I'd like for anyone to actually reach out and help some people with actually taking out as much auction as you can.
Because what we do is we put this online and the proceeds of that goes to charity. So it's really nice of you to get your favorite pair of shoes.
Well, they've gotten me somewhere in life, and I'm sure they'll get someone else somewhere in life if they're willing to wear them. And if you don't want to wear them, you can really whack someone with them because they've got a pretty hard sole.
You'll have to sign it for us.
Sure.
I know you said you're not that vain, but now it's time for both of us to be a little vain.
Okay.
This is the selfie moment on the show.
Okay.
So we'll take a selfie together and hopefully look happy. So Fawad, we are going to play a game again. You're going to make 3 statements, out of which 2 will be true and 1 will be a lie. And our viewers are going to guess which one of them is a lie.
I'm not a lawyer. I don't know where that came from. Along with being an actor, I'm a billionaire playboy by day and a masked vigilante by night, out saving the world. I'm 33 years old.
And the lie is, I'm 33 years old. I'm actually 29. No, I'm kidding. The lie obviously is, and you'd be stupid enough if you didn't guess that, unless you actually believe I'm Batman. I could be Batman. You think I'm Batman? Obviously I'm not Batman. I'm not a billionaire playboy by day, and an actor, and a mass vigilante by night.
What is the one thing that you love the most about Bollywood?
Item numbers.
Which is the one filmmaker you're dying to work with in Bollywood?
You want me to be out of work, huh?
What is your most prized possession?
I think my most prized possession is my family. Oh.
What are the 3 things that you never leave your house without?
Wallet, obviously insulin, and something to check my sugar with. I'm being honest. Those are the 3 things that I don't leave without. I can't leave without.
Karan Johar or Sonam Kapoor as producers?
Sonam Kapoor is not a producer, so Karan Johar.
Yeah. that's a smart one.
Yeah.
Good. Were you an avid movie watcher? Were you an avid movie goer?
Not really. Especially, well, you see, I didn't have much access. The only access that I had as a child to films was, at that time we used to have VHS rental tapes.
Yes, tapes.
So I used to rent out tapes. And obviously in Riyadh, there was not a concept of, I don't think, cinemas, and especially, you know, English films and Hindi films were not playing, obviously, even if there were out there. I didn't even know of a cinema there. My earliest childhood memories of films like Satya Pa Satta.
Ah, yes.
Mr. India, Do Aur Do Panch, and then there were like these odd films, I think, which are very inappropriate for children to be watching at that time, because the kind of scenes that are happening in the films, like Aakhri Rasta. Then just like odd films like Kala Patthar, and then from somewhere Parinda came in. And then I'd be caught a couple of times, and you know, like at the age of 10, watching stuff like that, and you know, your parents like. There was an odd mix of films, and then there was like cartoons and cartoons and cartoons.
You mentioned earlier that you had diabetes at a very early age. Does it still persist?
Yes, it is. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I'm insulin dependent. I'm insulin dependent for life, and I've had it since the age of 17. Yeah, it's going to continue like that.
So does that hamper your workspace at all? Have you learned now to deal with it?
It's not the easiest thing to handle, but I guess if you tune yourself that way, it's very possible. So there are times when I let myself loose and I don't take care of things, and that's when it kind of affects me adversely. Otherwise, when I'm really monitoring it well, and mostly during Khoobsurat schedule, that was the case. हाँ, एक आध दफ़ा जो ऐसा हो जाता है कि आपकी शुगर जो एकदम से क्रैश कर जाती है, but that can happen to anyone. So it's about discipline.
But it's largely also, they say, I don't know how far it's true, but it's also largely stress related. And in profession like movies, is it or is it not stress related at all?
Stress is one of the factors, but I think it's really down the list. Diabetes, agar stress related hoti to right now probably the whole world would have it.
That's true.
Yeah, it is a medical condition, and it is obviously due to certain, your body is unable to process certain things. In type 1, it's actually the lack of your pancreas not being able to work. And in type 2, it's the reason behind it is mostly it's mostly considered hereditary, but it's your receptors don't respond to the insulin, because insulin basically in the body now is turning into a medical show. So I'll just cut it short. Basically, insulin in the body is a hormone that just sends out the signal that your blood sugar needs to be converted and taken out of your bloodstream. So that when that's not happening, you have type 2 diabetes. So both of them are medical conditions which are certainly not brought about by stress. Maybe एक आध दफा शायद लोगों की हो जाती हो.
So according to you, is the only solution is to be disciplined about what you eat?
It's true, yeah. You have to be disciplined about what you eat.
Thank you, Fawad, for being on the show and being so patient with me despite your cough and speaking so much about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. And had I not been coughing, maybe I could have entertained you a little more.
So Fawad, you're going to make me, sorry.
Look happy when you get that.
Was I looking unhappy throughout the interview? Wink. Yeah, I'm terrible at all of them, man. I just give you all of them. Like,